Hey, good morning. Linda Malone is here. Linda is an amazing person that we met. We met about a year ago, I think, at the TCC NIRL online conference. And
Yeah, I remember the sound wasn't working, and we
yeah,
had to.
well, speaking of sound issues, yeah. And what I found is I was trying that day to use these for the first time. They're my little Samsung earbuds. And Erin didn't like them for whatever reason. Everything else that I use them on is just fine, but Erin said, "I don't think so."
Oh,
So
that's funny.
if and I don't know, have you used Erin since then?
I think I did once, and I had problems with it.
Did you?
So I don't.
It's so wild to me. Like you just sit there and you're having a conversation, and then it starts to fade into black, and it
Yeah.
cracks me every
Oh,
time.
it's spooky. Like, where'd you go?
We won't do that here. We won't do that here. Anyway, so you have worked in a ton of different publications. You have written for a lot of health, beauty, and wellness clients, and now you're doing B2C copywriting for the most part.
Yeah,
Did I read that correctly? Cool. So
B2B.
yeah,
More
tell
than
me how you got into this path. You have a really cool path.
well, I'm one of these serial entrepreneurs that I have done everything. I have this thing where if it's not fun anymore, I am out. And so I try a lot of different things. And so throughout my career, I've been everything from a pastry chef and bakery owner to a personal trainer, to a writer. What happened is I've always been a writer. Even as a kid, I would make up stories, and I was always head of the class in like English and all this. And even my teachers would tell my mom, she's got some kind of talent with this writing thing. And so it was always the undercurrent of everything I did. And so I became a really big in content writing. And by content, I mean when print publication was still really big. And so I wrote for every magazine from Family Circle to Good Housekeeping to Health. I've been in Time Magazine. And then around 2000, I want to say 2012, 13, somewhere around there, the whole publishing world, the print publishing world kind of collapsed. It just, everything was going online. And so I lost a lot of business very quickly. And I decided to take, and at the same time, I was doing a lot of fitness training. So I said, let me do personal training online. And the good thing was it taught me all about marketing online, marketing myself, because I had no clue. I just kind of threw myself into it, and did my own ads, did my own writing, did all my blogs. And then it just, for a number of reasons, it didn't work. I couldn't make the money I wanted to make in that space. So I said, I'm going back to writing, but I didn't want to do content anymore because it wasn't the same. The things I was getting $2,000 for, I'm now getting $100 for. And I had to sign like 17 pages of, permissions for everyone to use it everywhere. And I said, all right, well, copywriting intrigued me. In fact, the coach that headed up the place where we met, the TCA, I don't remember,
Yeah,
the copywriters.
the conference, the Copywriter Club conference.
Yeah, I had reached out to Kara Hug to write one of my fitness pages. And at the time I was still doing that. And I didn't know what a conversion copywriter was, but I remember it was too expensive for me. I didn't have really the base. I had no justification for spending that kind of money. I didn't have the audience for it. So I said, okay, I'm going to wait on this. But I was intrigued about what is this thing called conversion copywriting. So that's where I ended up where I am.
Very cool. I didn't know that part. That's super cool. And I love Kira. I actually get to talk to her and Rob in about an hour where we'll go through like the next 6 months of my business and what I want to build. But yeah, and I didn't realize that you had just moved either. Like, not that we're jumping all around, but we're totally jumping all around because you've been in California for the last couple of
2
years.
months ago. Yeah. I'm in Arizona, Queen Creek, Arizona.
Is that
It's near
is that near
Gilbert.
Phoenix?
Gilbert. It's like
Gilbert,
45 minutes from Phoenix. Yeah. It's very new here. And it's an adjustment. We're still adjusting. Still have boxes all over.
Well, we moved 18 months ago, and I feel like we still have a lot of boxes. We were just like, okay, we've been here for long enough now. How can we really use this space effectively? So my office, probably next week, we'll move to another room in the house, and
Oh, really?
our home gym.
You have things on the wall. To me, that signifies that you're in. because I took me a while to get this stuff up, and then in my llama with the glasses everyone loves. So I made the office my own finally.
I started out with stuff on the wall, and then after March, after I got back from Nashville, I actually kind of changed it all up, but that will be changing again. You don't see what's on the other side of my desk though, Linda. And it's
Oh,
kind of the space, it's kind of off the main, anyway, we're on the main floor, but it's kind of off the main hangout areas. And so it's the place where we shove all the stuff that we're really not sure what to do with. Like we've got a box of kids' artwork and we've got a box of our artwork that we just are like, where are we going to put this? So yeah, it's a process to move in.
Big one.
What prompted the move?
The cost of living in California, my husband and I both work for ourselves, and property taxes here are about 25% of what they were out there. I mean, it's not like a small difference. It's not like, oh, we're going to save $100 a month. No, we're saving a ridiculous amount of money. And, we're both just tired of the trying to, every month is like, it's just stressful. And so here it's more laid back, and we wouldn't have to be as crazy about how much we're taking in, and we can easily make the mortgage. It's mainly the cost.
Well, and I think that's nice to not have the pressure to be like, all right, if I don't bring in this much in work this month, then things are going to be tight. Like there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So I haven't spent any time in Arizona, but tell me a little bit more about some of the copy that you're writing today. Like what's your main focus?
My main focus, I'm one of these people, I like to let things kind of happen organically. So I put myself out there and I see what people want and what I'm getting most requests for. So what I'm doing a lot of is Facebook ads, which is interesting to me because I had no real interest in it. But apparently what happened is, going back to when I had my online fitness business, Facebook ads is really, an art and a science where and the algorithm changes like hourly.
Daily,
so
yeah, hourly for sure.
And so when you're writing for the health field, which I do quite a bit, health and lifestyle, there's a lot of things you can and cannot say, more that you cannot say. So I've been doing a lot of Facebook ads because I know how to talk and how to get around those restrictions. I do my specialty, which is what I'd like to do more of, is value proposition audits, because I find that B2B, because I do mainly more B2B and B2C. B2B is, a lot of companies don't really, you ask them, what do you do and how are you different from your competition? And they should be able to say it in a single breath. And most of them can't. Some can, but the ones I've worked for, a lot of them, they don't know. And sometimes they say, we don't know, and that's why we need you. Other times they kind of brush it off. It's like, well, we don't know, but we'll figure it out. Or, it's just, they don't tell you.
Or they say it in like a paragraph when a single sentence will do. Whether it's written or verbal. It's funny. I agree with that so much. And I mean, meanwhile, I'm kind of in the same boat with when I talk about what I do, and I'm still refining it, but there's so much that people have to be able to internalize, and they need help tying in all the things to get to the meat of it. Who are you? What do you do? And what is your unique mechanism? What makes you stand apart? Todd Brown has so much material on that I just like eat up every time.
Oh yeah, I've taken a course with him.
What's your process like? What does that look like?
It's very research heavy, as you would imagine what copywriting usually is. My whole value prop for myself is that I use a 50-point checklist for, and obviously not everyone has all of it. In fact, most people or companies don't have about half of it. A 50-point checklist to dive into the research. So these are all the checks and balances, including, interviews with current and past clients, customers. I love diving into like the social media to find out what the competition is doing. And so it's all of that, plus, traditional analytics and all that. And then I spend most of my time on that. And once I get that nailed down, the copy pretty much writes itself. It's like, I'll be talking to someone, you probably had this too, right? Where somebody will say something, you're like, that's going to be a headline. Like, it's just so profound, and it just targets like exactly what you're trying to say. So it's very research heavy. And then I write the copy, editing. It's really, there's no real, I wish I could give you some like really unique.
Well, I think that 50-point checklist is really, really unique. And I think you're right. Most people don't have it dialed in to be that tight of a process. So I think that's really cool. But I think you hit the head, right? When you said that it's really about listening to what people say, because a lot of times people really do have their headlines internalized. And it's a matter of hearing them say it and then like, reviewing it against all the data and saying, this really is powerful. And I find that people, I mean, obviously people know their own businesses so well, so well. And they know what works in the sales process, but they can't translate those conversations into the copy. And I think that's what's so interesting is knowing the questions to ask. And I think that probably draws on like so much of everything that you've done over the course of the last,
Yeah. And the other thing too is that a lot of companies, they create like a value proposition in a boardroom of everyone. Like they just try to come up with something really witty and fun or whatever it is. And there's a saying, and I got this from my book, it's not mine, but I use it a lot because it's so accurate. A lot of companies inhale their own fumes, meaning, they just love, oh, this is so good and we're going to use this without really thinking that, are your customers saying this? Is this what people want to hear? Is this addressing what they're looking for? Because a lot of times it's not. It's just something the CEO thought was genius and no one's going to come up to him or her and say, I don't know, maybe we should work on this, because I mean, they don't want to push back. So I see that.
They're like, yeah, this sounds great. It's kind of like happening. It's almost an echo chamber, but it's for sure a vacuum where it's like, there's no other perspectives. And maybe they want to push back. Maybe they don't. I think that's really interesting because a lot of it's just like, oh, this is awesome. Let's run with it. And there's no one with the knowledge and background who can step up and say, so about this other thing.
Maybe it's not perfect. The thing is too, value props can change, as customers change, as your offers change. And I think some companies, they get very nervous about, okay, so if we make this one statement, that's like the end all be all. It's like, no, it can change. It can morph. You can adjust it. You can have several value props. It doesn't have to be, it depends on what you're using it for, the kind of copy. Is it for an ad? Is it for a landing page? It could be different depending on where you're putting it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that comes up a lot. It's like they either think it has to be perfect to put it out there in the world. And it's like, well, it should, but you can test it. And if it's not landing, then you can always make adjustments. But I think, I don't know, how often are you finding that your clients are making some significant shifts in their businesses and pivoting?
As far as like being willing to change things, you mean, or as a result of copy, or?
So a lot of what I work with when I am helping other people write their website copy, done for you is a lot of B2B, but done with you is a lot of other copywriters. And I think a lot of people are so worried about what they're putting out there isn't just 100% perfect all the time that they're not willing to test it. But then by that same token, I know copywriters, we pivot what we're doing because a lot of us are also serial entrepreneurs. We pivot it every 6 to 12 months. You're like, oh, I'm going to try something new. And then with that, it's going to change anyway. But so I haven't seen how often that's also changing in the B2B world as much. It seems like it's more like every 3 to 5 years that people are making some really big shifts as, the pandemic or other things.
Right.
So I'm just curious if you've seen something like that.
I've only been working with B2B for a few years, so I think it's not long enough for me to see a huge shift. One shift, and I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but it's something I experienced. One of my clients, right before I met him, and I met him on LinkedIn, he had hired an SEO copywriter for his website. So the whole site was done with SEO in mind, a lot of SEO phrases, and it was obvious. When you read a site and you're like, oh, somebody's bombarding Google with
They are keyword stuffing, yes.
so much that it's like, okay, it's really redundant. And so when he met me and we talked and I told him what I did, and he's like, I wish I had met you before I hired this SEO copywriter. So long story short, I ended up redoing his site anyway. And the thing is, with conversion copywriting, I mean, I still use SEO. I still consider those keywords, but it's not the focus, because if Google's getting you to a site and you get there, it's like, okay, I'm here. And now you don't know what that company does or what they offer. What's the point? So you still, if it's not converting, you still need that. So the big change for this particular company was that he now has, a site that's converting better, and it's a lot more fun, because what he had, by his own admittance, is pretty boring. So I don't know, kind of change. Just
Yeah. Oh no, I'm agreeing with you. I think that's a really interesting, and I think that's a common thing. And I think you're spot on. There's ways to work those keywords in a way that's meaningful,
right,
but also valuable. And a lot of people that are coming to a website aren't necessarily finding it in Google. So the keyword stuffing it's without purpose, and a lot of the time. It's like, if it's not a valuable resource answering a specific question, like on a blog or something else, it's more important to have customers see what they want to see, like see something that's going to reflect back what their actual needs are.
right.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. So you're doing a lot of website copy too?
I mean, I don't know about a lot. I'm doing some. I'm waiting to hear. I mean, having a company commit to an entire website redo it's a project. Like, I have 2 clients that I'm waiting to hear back from that could be, complete website, website copy. Because the thing is, because I used to, and I still do this, if somebody just wants a landing page, okay, that's fine. But if you're a conversion copywriter doing one page on your website, and the rest of it, or any type of copy, if you're changing copy on one page with a specific goal or a different tone or voice, now the rest of the website doesn't match. So it's sort of an all or nothing deal, unless the web page, like if I get hired for a landing page for a particular offer or a registration page, and it's going to disappear after a while, okay, that's fine. But you still, if it's a landing page, if it's a home page, that home page should really reflect the rest of the site. So yeah, I'm doing landing pages, ads, mainly focusing on those. I'm starting to get people asking me about doing LinkedIn posts, because I'm so active on there.
You are all over LinkedIn. I love it. I think you've done such a good job of positioning yourself as an expert. But also, like, you show up, and I think that's something that's easy to lose sight of and to fall off of if you're not focused and taking this targeted, measured approach. And that's, that's part of the reason that I wanted to start doing these and sharing them on LinkedIn, as well as some of the other places that I share them, because it gives me that content, that consistent ability to show up. But I'm always having coffee conversations with people. We've had a couple just like not published and not broadcast, but it's like, why not turn that into a marketing opportunity for both of us? Why not?
Sure.
Because it's effective. What would be your top like 3 tips for someone who is interested in LinkedIn and doesn't have any idea how to get started or how to show up?
Well, the number one thing, and you hear about this all the time, is consistency, like you mentioned with me. And by the way, I started doing this LinkedIn as a result of that conference where I met you. Do you remember a woman who, I forget her name now? I want to say Michaela. I think her name was Michaela. She did a whole forum, or a whole workshop on LinkedIn, and she challenged everyone. She said,
"Oh, McCall Isaacowitz, is that?"
I think that's it.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, and she said, get on LinkedIn 3 times a week and give it 3 months and see what happens. I'm one of these people who just I can do things even if I don't think it's going to work. I'm just going to try it. And it really took off. And what happened is I started meeting people that were helping me. So the first thing is consistency. And I don't think you have to post every day. I do, because I like it. And I've got to know so many people on there just from the connections. Be consistent, whether it's 3 times a week, whether it's, whatever works within your schedule. The second thing is to always just offer value without asking for anything. Like, this is a whole part of that whole demand gen. You know, you just, like, I yesterday put a carousel up about voice and tone, and I gave examples of what were some pages that had a particular funny voice, or voice. And then and to leave a lot of comments. That, I think, is an underrated tip, because a lot of people, and I did this before I knew all this, would go on, post a link to their blog, any kind of outside links that go into your posts. LinkedIn doesn't like it. They want you to stay there, obviously. So if you're going to put a link, put it in the comments. But you want to go on other people's posts. And what I do is look for people in the marketing world, because that's where I want to focus. That's where my clients are. And so you just start commenting and leaving comments above, like, more than just "I agree" or "great post," but add something to it. Like, what is it that you like about it? What can you tag on to what they said? And then also look at the other people who are commenting. Like, I follow Chris Walker, is a huge marketing guy. He's with I can't think of the name, it escapes me now, but he has, whenever he posts, it's always, he will get hundreds of comments. And so I'll go and look at what other people are saying to him, and a lot of times try to link with them. And I'm out there enough that people usually will. It's pretty rare that somebody ignores my connection.
Is he with Refine Labs?
Refine Labs.
There's so many amazing people on Refine Labs that are just doing an awesome job on LinkedIn too.
I've learned so much about marketing for him, like all the acronyms. Sometimes I have to look them up. It's like, what's MQL? And so I learned. But yeah, just reaching out to people who you can benefit, and it's got to be a mutual thing, and you have to just do it without, like, just detaching from any outcome. No sales pitching, of course. Just putting yourself out there.
Yeah, I think, when I was on, it was actually the Copywriter Club podcast, and I was talking about my network, and a couple people reached out, and they're like, "Well, how do you monetize that?" And I'm like, "I don't." The whole point is literally to get to know people, and as you said, when you let go of that outcome, it's amazing what doors open up. And maybe they're doors, you started a podcast, and maybe that, I don't know how that came up, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But I think, and then he's like, "Well, how do you ask for things?" I'm like, you don't. It's really about getting to know people and offering value. And then it pays off. People see you giving value, and that you're not constantly just, and there's some aspect of self-marketing and self-promotion as well, but it can't be all about self-promotion.
You know what? I thought about this morning. It's almost like when I first started, when I made the announcement, I'm going to become a copywriter. And I told my friends who knew me from the fitness business, I had 3 people immediately say, "I'm going to hire you." Why did they hire me? They didn't know anything about my background. I was just starting out. They hired me because they knew me, they liked me, and they trusted me. And so it's the same thing you're trying to build on LinkedIn with people, is you have to show up, you have to, give value, you have an exchange where you don't ask for anything. And then eventually they'll say, "I do need some copy. Linda's been in touch with me." And I have had people reach out to me just because they know me from the back and forth, so
Right.
it takes a while though. It's not going to happen in a week, probably not even in a month. I'd say 3 months is when you can start to see a shift. 6 months is when you're really seeing change. Now, I've been doing this, it's a year in April. I've been very, very consistent. And I'm really starting to see multiple leads coming in and people referring me who I don't even know. And that's the other thing, is people will lurk and they won't comment, but they're there and they're watching you. It sounds kind of creepy, but this is what they do. And then they'll reach out.
Well, yeah, that's it. You never know who's watching or who's seen your name, and they're like, "Oh, that's what she does. Okay." Yeah, it's crazy. But then you think about it too, and when you see people who are like, "Hey, I'm looking for this," they get jumped on, and all of a sudden there's more than they know what to handle. So they pay attention to who other people are recommending and tagging. And it's like, "Oh, that person looks interesting. I want to learn more about them."
Yeah.
So it's not always like stalker lurky.
No, But I am surprised a lot of times when, like I posted something. If I post something personal, like when my mom passed away and I posted about that, and people reached out to me in the DMs who never comment, but they're like, just want, I'm thinking about you kind of thing. And I didn't know these people were even following me. So that's when, and it's good. And it also shows that people think of you as a person versus just a brand or something. And it's funny because everyone says to me, you're out there all over the place. And it's like, oh, I don't feel like I am, but I guess I am.
You put a lot of effort though into visibility, and I think that also pays off. Speaking of visibility, your podcast. Can we talk about your podcast?
Oh yeah, I'd be thrilled.
What?
Of course, I want to talk about.
I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. Between kids and baseball and sports, I have not gotten to listen to all the podcasts I want to listen to. So can you give us like a synopsis of?
Yeah, I call it the B2B Marketing and Copywriting Podcast. And there was a lot of thought went into that name because I wanted to focus on marketing because I want to pull marketing people in more than I will have copywriters on, but I want to just get a lot of like the copywriting tips right now are just mine. But I am interviewing people in the marketing field. And I actually just this week, in fact, I have one later on today, I'm starting to get a backlog of shows. And so I have not perfected the art of repurposing everything everywhere. I mean, I have a podcast editor who's now taking clips. Like I will tell him, look, I'll review everything. With this point, I try to keep it below like less than 3 minutes because people don't really on LinkedIn, they don't tend to watch longer than that. So I will do like this week, I did a 1-minute clip and a 3-minute clip. And I can see, I use analytics called Shield. Do you use the Shield?
I'm not familiar with that. No.
Shield.ai. It's a LinkedIn app that tracks all of your LinkedIn posts. I find it extremely helpful. And it tells me what the views are, how much engagement, and it can organize it in any way you want, and it can go back for a full year. And it's really interesting to see what people are responding to. And the most interesting thing I found is that people will, on the videos, because that's where the podcasts, the little snippets I put out there, the views are much lower, but the engagement is much higher. So engagement can be as much as 34%, which is very high considering the other ones are getting, I'd say like a few percent, 3-5% a lot of times. And the reason is that people will, like LinkedIn measures the views on a video as real views, where a view of just the text is just, if it scrolls through someone's feed, they count it as a view. So it's not really, you don't know if they read it, just showed up in their post. But yeah, so the podcast has been, I've had it since January, and I started it because I had a bet with somebody. He said he was going to do his, and I said, I'm going to do mine. And he still hasn't had their podcast up, we won't say. But I need that motivation. I need somebody to say, you have to get this done.
That's how this started. That's exactly how this started. It was a pay-to-play opportunity in the Women's Entrepreneur Network Facebook group. And it was like, you can go live 7 days a week in this group of 70,000 people. And I was like, that's really cool. I don't want to go live 7 days a week. That's more than I can handle, but I can handle 3. And some weeks it's only 1 or 2. Like if I'm gone, some weeks I miss, but on the whole, it's super, super consistent. And it's been so much fun. And then it was like, well, as long as I'm streaming there, I need to be streaming to these other platforms as well. And I still show up there. Obviously it makes sense. But I spend probably the most time, and I get the most benefit off of LinkedIn. But it was because I had to, right? Because I paid for this. And I don't know that I will continue going it 3 times a week for after this year is up, but it's something that I see a lot of value in continuing to do for the same reasons. It's not always everyone viewing live during, but a lot of people say, oh, I saw that. That was really interesting. And people get the notification that you're going live. Plus you get YouTube, which, full disclosure, I think I have 16 people on my channel right now. So it's a growing audience.
Yeah.
But it gives a place to direct traffic to. That's a very defined link. And yeah, so I will probably be chatting with you later about using Anchor because I am super curious about taking that next step and converting the video. But what I really like about it is that there's no editing. I don't need to worry about showing up, restating things, because whatever comes out is whatever comes out. Because it is,
Right.
it's these live coffee conversations.
Your cat jumps on you, you can't edit that out. I've
Right.
seen some videos where your cat's on
Yeah.
you.
If it really doesn't work or something really goes wrong, we can always do it again.
Right.
But for the most part, it's I feel like there's so much less pressure as a result.
Yeah, it's true. But I've done several podcasts though where there was an interruption, not on my end, but with the other person. There was a knock on the door one time. The person had to leave. I mean, I was able to edit that out where I really wouldn't want to. And it was the guest's child at the door, so it's not like he could ignore it. So I mean, she just wanted to give him something, but he was off camera, then he was on camera, then he was talking about it for a minute, and it's like I cut all that out because it was not relevant, to the subject at hand. But if it was a live broad, I mean, you think about the guy. Where was he in where
Oh, South
the
Korea, I think, yes.
and it went viral, so you never know. I mean, it could work in your favor, I guess. People like knowing that you're human, so there you
My
go.
children show up a lot. There was one time we were doing one of these, and my daughter waltzed in, and she's like, "I went potty. Can I have a lollipop?" And she wasn't gonna leave it alone, so I had to go, get up, go into the kitchen behind me, and go get her a lollipop. It's like, oh, well, I mean, it is what it is, right? You
That
just
is a riot.
Well, so we're just a little over the 30-minute mark. I wanna make sure that we're, letting people know where they can find you. I did pop all of your links into the description here, but and you said you're reworking your website, but it's the Copyworks, um, the copy and then worx.com.
Yes.
And you'll have your podcast on there next week too.
Yeah, that's on Apple. It's Anchor is the host site, but then it's distributed through Apple and Spotify. So you can find it there. Yeah, I'm all over LinkedIn, as I said. And this week, literally, I will have my new website up because I'm working on the portfolio page. And that's been a challenge because of all the different formats that I write in. So we finally got that figured out for the most part. So
That's
I mean,
awesome.
there is a site, but it's going to be different in a week or so, hopefully.
Well, I'm very excited to see it. You'll have to, I'm sure you'll post it to LinkedIn and share all about the experience and
Oh yeah, definitely.
all the good stuff. Well, thanks so much for hopping on here with me this morning, Linda. I know it's like 7:30 and you're probably ready to go find the coffee pot.
I have a coffee. No, it's been fun. I always like talking to you. It's why it's like, okay, we'll just hang out and have a good conversation.
Yeah, there's a couple people who've been like, "Oh, I just don't know what to say." And it's like, literally, we can talk about the weather. We can talk about, how long the grass is getting. We can cover anything. It's just
I
a matter
never
of,
said those words. I've never been a loss. So yeah, it's like not knowing what to write. I don't know what that's like. I always have something.
I always have ideas. Sometimes getting started is hard, but
Yeah.
then once you just start typing
Start
things
telling.
flow. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I'm going to go ahead and hit end, and then we can continue the conversation in just a moment offline. It's not like after dark. That's